In 2001, Kylie released the mega hit Can't Get You Out of My Head, a song still widely regarded as one of the best pop songs of all time. Its parent album Fever became the biggest seller of Kylie's long career and won praise from critics and fans alike. Retrospectively, the era is now considered to be her creative and commercial zenith. So just how did our Kyles create such pop magic? Did Sophie Ellis Bextor really turn down Can't Get You Out of My Head? How did Cathy and Rob Davis write the song? What was Kylie like to work with? So many questions, let's find out. Kylie's second album began in earnest in early 2001 with a meeting at her record label Parlophone with her A&R guys Jamie Nelson and Miles Leonard, the guy who signed Coldplay. Ow. It was at this very meeting that Kylie first heard the demo version of Can't Get You Out of My Head, a song which a few short months later would send her career stratospheric. Kylie has said in numerous interviews over the years that within 20 seconds of hearing the demo, she knew she wanted it. By the time the song had ended, she had grown anxious about securing the song for herself and ensuring nobody else could get their hands on it. Kylie later told the Sun newspaper about her initial reaction to the song, saying, "I fell in love with it the first time I heard it. Like Cinderella's slipper, it was the perfect fit." Not only did Kylie and her team love the song, it also provided them with a clear benchmark for the direction of her new album. Parlophone Records were keen to progress beyond the pure camp pop of light years and develop her music into a more contemporary sound. In January 2001, she headed to Dublin for recording sessions with her long-term collaborators Richard Stannard and Julian Gallagher, who she had worked with on Light Years. These recording sessions yielded a batch of songs, including soon-to-be hit single In Your Eyes. Kylie's recording was interrupted in February as she began rehearsals for the On a Night Like This tour, which began the following month in England and ended in mid-May in Australia, at which point recording resumed on Fever. Throughout the summer of 2001, Kyles recorded about 25 more tracks, mostly at the Olympic Studios in London. The two Greg Fitzgerald and Tom Nichols songs, Burning Up and Fever, were also recorded around this time. And throughout the recording of the project, Can't Get You Out of My Head remained the obvious lead single and the signpost for the album's musical direction. The song was written, of course, by former guitarist for 70s glam rock band Mud, Rob Davis, and former 90s pop star Cathy, who at that stage had written a number of big hits for S Club 7. She also had a Minogue association stretching way back to 1992 when she wrote a song for Kylie's sister Danny. The song, entitled Love's on Every Corner, only reached a disappointing number 44. Rob had of course written huge hits including Taka's Miracle, Spiller's Groove Jet and Grace's Not Over Yet. According to Britain's PRS for Music, the two writers wrote the song in the autumn of 2000 at Rob's house in Epsom, Surrey, just outside London. The pair had just 2 days together, and on the second day they wrote Can't Get You Out of My Head. Rob talked about the song's genesis in 2021 to Sky News. "It was just one of those days where everything worked. It was all written as we went. No preconceived ideas or anything. All I started with was a 125 drum loop, and I played a bit of guitar, and Cathy came in with the I just can't get you out of my head thing straight away. Gradually we wrote it in sections on the keyboard. With a lot of dance music you have a whole backing track first, but we didn't. We gradually wrote it from the top to bottom as we went along." Cathy, speaking to the Ivor Novello website, had this to say about writing the song. "That wasn't written with any specific artist in mind. It was the first of a couple of songs Rob Davis and I wrote together, and it was a ridiculously relaxed afternoon. It really was written and demoed in 2.5 hours. It's really annoying because you spend the rest of your career wishing that things would come that easily, but it just doesn't work like that all the time, unfortunately. I was gone before it hit 3 hours." Speaking to PRS for Music, Cathy said that she had had a drum idea for the song similar to the ones used in Run DMC and Jason Nevin's mix of It's Like That, and that it was her who brought the Kraftwerk vibe to the song. She also said that she and Rob had written the bridge and the chorus first, at which point she knew the song needed another hook but not another lyric. and it was then that those legendary la la las were added. Rob also recorded Kylie's vocals for the track in his small home studio in Epsom, Surrey. In the interview with Sky News, Rob said that the vocal recording took place after Kylie had performed it at the Hammersmith Apollo in March 2001, as part of her On a Night Like This tour. So based on that information, she didn't record the vocals until spring or early summer 2001. Like everyone who works with Kylie, Rob gave glowing reviews of Miss Minogue and her professionalism. It was a sweet moment. She was really nice. She brought her own food, smoked salmon and stuff like that from a deli, and brought enough for everybody. It was all done in the garage, just me and Cathy producing it. It was done in bits, but she'd already learnt it. She's very pro Kylie. And I know this video is all about Kylie's pop genius, but we can't talk about Can't Get You Out of My Head without mentioning the artist who turned the song down. The stories of this epic lapse in music judgment have become pop legend over the last 2 decades. It has been said that S Club 7 and Sophie Ellis Bextor both rejected the song. But speaking to the BBC Sounds podcast Step Back in Time in 2018, Sophie said she never turned down the song because she was never played it in the first place. And the first time she ever heard it was on the radio like everyone else. She does admit, however, that she shared with S Club 7 the same A&R people who told her that they had turned down the song on the group's behalf. However, Sophie did say she has some suspicions about that story. And perhaps the A&R person might not have been telling the truth. If your job is to find hits and you turn down one of the biggest pop songs ever, you wouldn't exactly be too eager to tell people about it. Sophie did say, however, that Kylie was the right person for the song, and I don't think anyone would disagree with her. Although I would be really curious to hear Sophie's posh sounding vocals on the track. I have absolutely no idea why it was offered to S Club 7. I can't imagine them doing a really cool, slick, modern electro pop song at all, but I guess the track found its right home in the end. And now let's talk about some of the other songs on the album. Mark Picciotti produced Butterfly for Kylie's last album, Light Years, and that track was also used as a template for the future direction of Kylie's sound. For Fever, Mark co-wrote and produced the 5th track, Give It To Me, a song which doesn't tend to be a fan favourite and Kylie has never performed it live. On the Turn the Beat Around podcast from 2021, he talked about his experience of working on the song. I wrote Give It To Me with Kylie and Steve Anderson in the world's smallest recording studio ever. We wrote 2 songs and Give It To Me was the one they picked, and it was very raw. I thought I could re-record her vocals, but they said no. Thank God Kylie delivers pretty much every time. I came back to Chicago, produced the hell out of that record. At the time I was influenced by Basement Jaxx, in particular Red Alert. The funny thing was I was paid. I had the contract and they said you have to deliver it by tomorrow. Back then you couldn't email, so I went to a company that did ISBN transfers. Paid $300 to send it to Parlophone. They came back to me and said, good news, your track made it to the album. I had no idea they had 37 tracks they had paid for that record. Steve Anderson, a long-term collaborator of Kylie's, co-wrote 2 songs on the album and produced the 9th song, Dance Floor. In an interview with the blog I Like Your Old Stuff, he talked about his experience of producing that track. Even on Dance Floor we went in and did a posher version with strings and they said, you've lost the vibe of the original. They were very keen on making sure the album had that edge, that toughness, that it didn't sound too polished. Kylie has said that Come Into My World was the last song to be written and recorded for the album in the last few days running up to the album's deadline in August 2001. The record label felt the final album needed another track similar to Can't Get You Out of My Head to help build cohesion on the album. So they asked Cathy Dennis and Rob Davis to try and write another song in a similar vein. The 2 songwriters got back into the studio one weekend in August 01 and by Sunday they'd nailed Come Into My World. Parlophone had it by Monday and Kylie and her team immediately said yes to it. She had to go to Germany the next day but recorded the vocals immediately immediately upon her return. Although the title track Fever was initially planned as the fourth single from the album, it was instead changed to Come Into My World, with Kylie re-recording the vocals later in Melbourne for the single's release, as apparently Cathy Dennis's vocals could be heard on the album version. Speaking to Gary Barlow's BBC podcast We Write the Songs, Cathy had this to say about Can't Get You Out of My Head's release. I loved the song. After Kylie's A&R people said this is going to be the first single, I said really? I just didn't get it. It was definitely not a contrived song. It came out very organically. It just kinda happened. Can't Get You Out of My Head was released on the 8th of September 2001 in Australia and on the 17th of September in the UK. And as I'm sure you already know, that was also the week Victoria Beckham released her first solo single. Both ladies were signed to labels owned by EMI, so it was probably done intentionally to help maximise publicity for both releases. But of course it turned out not to be a chart battle at all, with Vicky Beckham's song only reaching number 6. Kylie's song sold over 300,000 copies in its first week and spent 4 weeks at number 1 in the UK, even keeping Michael Jackson's long-awaited comeback single You Rock My World off the top spot. It took only 4 months for it to reach sales of 1 million copies and became Kylie's biggest song of her career, 14 years after she had released her first single. To put the song's achievements into perspective, her second biggest UK hit, Especially For You, took 25 years to reach the 1 million mark. The song went to number 1 in 40 countries and gave Kylie her first top 10 hit in America since 1988 with The Locomotion. The song won 3 prestigious Ivor Novellos, including the most performed work of 2001 and International Hit of the Year. Kylie won 2 Brits that year, including Best International Female and Best International Album. Can't Get You Out of My Head wasn't the only song from the album winning accolades. Come Into My World won the Grammy for Best Dance Recording in 2004. PRS for Music, a UK music organisation, named Can't Get You Out of My Head the most popular song of the decade, as it received the highest airplay and live covers in the 2000s. In 2012, NME named the song the 4th greatest pop song in history, and in 2021, the British Independent called it the best pop song of the 21st century. And of course, it wasn't just the music that made the Fever era so special. The accompanying artwork, photography, and videos also played a huge part in its success. But I've decided not to go into too much detail about Fever's visuals, as that would need a whole other video in itself. The Can't Get You Out of My Head video, directed by long-term Kylie collaborator Dawn Shadforth, became instantly iconic upon its release, and its robotic-style dance routine won its choreographer Michael Rooney a Video Music Award way back in 2003. The album cover for Fever, which in my humble opinion is one of the best album covers ever, was shot by fashion photographer Vincent Peters, who also did the cover for Light Years. It was swapped for the American release of the album, with Capitol Records in the States choosing a portrait of Kylie making eye contact instead of the shot of Kylie striking a pose with her mic. After almost 15 years in the industry and experimenting with multiple musical styles, Kylie found her sweet spot on Fever. But why exactly did she become such a genius pop star on her 8th album? In the 90s, Kylie went through a process of trial and error with her musical experiments, working with cool indie musicians such as the Manic Street Preachers and Nick Cave, among many others. But by the turn of the millennium, Kylie had figured out her strengths and weaknesses. She realised she wasn't an indie queen, but a sparkly pop princess. She made peace with her pop past, and instead of running from it, she embraced it. It's ironic, after spending most of the 90s searching for artistic credibility, she finally found it when she returned to her pop roots. It also helped that the industry had much more money at the time to develop and nurture artists, unlike today when budgets are far tighter. Artists were given more time and opportunities to experiment and find their lane. Whilst those years may not have yielded huge commercial success, over time they helped Kylie gain musical credibility and to redefine redefine her career. Kylie was able to take inspiration from her manufactured pop past and also from her serious artist phase. A powerful combination which has made Kylie Minogue the pop genius she is. Two of the Greg Nichols and Tom Fitzgerald songs. No, that's wrong. Testing, testing, testing. Testing. Speaking to Gary Barlow's podcast. Speaking to Gary Barlow's. And don't forget to check out my video exploring just how manufactured the Spice Girls really were. Thanks for watching.